Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Motivation and That, where we take hot mess to high potential. I'm Natalie, I'm your host, and today is a quick solo episode. These are the hardest for me to record, partly because I hate scripting them out, because then I feel like I'm just reading off of something. And also because when I don't script them out, then they just end up on these rambles. This is probably my seventh take of trying to get this mini solo episode done, but we're going to push through this one, is no matter how kind of funky it may feel or goofy it may feel. So just know you've been warned. Let me just set it up off the bat of how we're taking this little mini solo episode to end 2025, which has been one heck of a year, I think, for all of us. And we may be a little anxious about what 2026 has ahead, but let's just take a second, a deep breath, and think about how we can, just sit in this moment and just be present. And that's all I ask of people, to be here, take a quick listen. Hopefully you'll take something away from today's episode, or you'll be excited for what's coming up in 2026 on the podcast, or you will feel motivated to go back and look at a past episode, maybe that you skipped over, didn't listen to, or one that you loved that you're going to share with others around you, because I think there is something that resonates with everyone in these first 25-ish episodes that we've done on this podcast. But there's so much more to come. And that is what I'm really excited about. We'll have kind of three buckets of focus areas as we go into 2026 for motivation and that. And you already know one of them because we did the teaser on this idea of focusing with this Mr. Rogers feel of Won't You Be My Neighbor, talking to local business owners who have really turned a passion into a purpose and have expanded it even beyond that to just be good overall community members and to be present with the place that they live. And I'm super excited for that. We're also going to keep talking about healthcare and growth and self-development with some of my mentors, my mentees, my peers, and others that have been recommended for their own journeys that they've had. And I'm really excited to kind of sprinkle those in because let's be honest, I'm still applying to jobs. I'm still looking for work. This podcast is my passion and what I love to do, but it's not something I figured out how to turn into some type of productive income stream at this point. I just love being here, and that's important. But eventually, we all got to understand there are bills to pay. And so I am on that journey of what the heck do I do next, along with a lot of other people. And it is a tough time right now. It certainly is. The job market is rough. People are really learning about who am I as a worker, as an employee, as a manager, whatever it might be. And do I want to live that corporate life? Do I want to do what I've always done? Do I want to stay in the industry that I'm in? And so we'll have a lot of those conversations as we go forward with a whole array of different people. And then we, of course, have the thing that underlies everything, which is the mental health component and the conversation of what really spurred this podcast in the first place, of recognizing all of those little mini messes that we have in our life and things that we feel might be a little out of our control. And how do we turn those into something bigger, better, and more powerful? And I'm thrilled that we have some really amazing people that are going to come chat about that, including an author who wrote one of my most life-changing books I've ever read, is going to join us and talk about heroism and healing. We've got other people in the industry, as well as people who have been on their own journeys. I'm pretty sure Jordan's going to come back and have a chat with us about kind of this parental estrangement. I've been on that whole path in the last few months as well, and it's tough. It is hard. And yet I do think we're having such good conversations as a society about some of these things. However, they can be overwhelming. So bringing them here into kind of a quieter, safer, more intimate space, hopefully will resonate for people that need a little bit of that in their life. So as we kind of hit on what those areas are, I do just want to open the doors and say, if you know someone that is passionate about any of those things, they own their own small business, they are on their own journey of discovery, they've changed careers mid, career path in life, or they're just someone who has found such purpose and meaning in telling about who they are or someone else that they are close to, that I want to talk to them. I want to give a platform to tell their story, much like you heard with Priya, who joined, as well as Carmelo, others. Ada when she joined and talked about finding your happiness. All of that is going to continue. What I will say is I hope that you've noticed there are people that come on this pod with a pitch, that they don't come on. I actually don't take press kits when I'm getting inquiries and people are like, hey, join the pod, or we want to come have a conversation with you. And they have this very AI driven kind of pitch that's associated with it. I will say those always give me a little bit of hesitation. If those individuals are responsive and they want to talk and they're open to getting off the record a little bit, still on the record, but off the record, and a little bit off script, I'm more than happy to give them a spot to have those conversations. So keep that in mind. Anyone from a media kind of press standpoint, that's what I'm looking for when you reach out. And I think it does give a lot of just realness to the people that perhaps have just been reading from a set line of pointers that they want to make sure they hit these things or they sell their product. That's not what we're here for. We're here to understand what was your breaking point when you were developing the product that you have now, or what was the moment when you wanted to quit, or the moment when you knew whatever success looked like for you was coming. When I hear about people that want to talk about wealth and entrepreneurship, I want to know where are the things that anyone who's not in those industries can start to even understand what the heck you're talking about. And so that's what you can expect from this pod going forward. That's what you can kind of tune in and know that's what you're going to get in those 1 hour episodes are some of those hard hitting questions that are going to take a guest by surprise, or they're going to evoke feeling, even if we're talking about the most mundane of topics for some people. So again, if you have something that you would love to hear talked about on motivation and that, let me know. Reach out. My information's on all the streaming places. You can hit me up and shoot me a message. I'd love to explore it. So with that, it would be amiss if I ignored the fact that this is releasing right between Christmas and New Year's, which are the holidays that I celebrate, but this is just kind of that time of year for everyone. Not only are we in the holiday season for folks, no matter what you may or may not celebrate, those around you at least are probably celebrating something, or experiencing something. And I can't say that enough, because times of celebration can also be times of hardship for so many others, whether it's they don't have the ability or the means to celebrate in the way that we think this time of year should bring around, or they are going through something of their own. For me, this time of year is always really hard. My dad died in February when I was just turned 18. And so this whole time frame between Christmas through my birthday, which is in January, New Year's, and then his death has always been like a 2 month span of I love it. I don't love it. It's horrible memories. It still also brings back really wonderful memories. And so I've seen a lot of that on social media recently. And if you follow me on LinkedIn or in other places, you know that I do this thing called Messy Monday. It's my blog post that I do for the business that I have that this podcast is produced under. And it is something that gives me a chance to just be very human with people and to acknowledge weird things or goofy things or uncomfortable things that happen or that we're feeling, and to talk through them a little bit. I've hit on as something simple as Josh and I arguing over a parking spot and what that actually taught me about our communication, to how my perspective around travel has changed over the years, to this week's release when I wrote about what messy kind of sentimental moments are like. And it was a good chance to go back and revisit what I find to be really powerful quotes. You probably know some of them. And as well as looking into actual research on this idea of what grief kind of seems to be. So you've probably heard this quote. It's from Vicky Harrison. It states, grief is like the ocean. It comes in waves, ebbing and flowing, and sometimes the water is calm, sometimes it is overwhelming, and all we can do is learn to swim. And it really is this kind of idea that we can go months and not really feel anything, and then hear something or smell something or have a memory, and all of a sudden we're sitting in our car crying, or you're in the shower and you're like, I really, miss those moments. And it catches us off guard so often. And I know that that's a feeling that anyone who's gone through loss of any sense really can experience. But I wanted to know a little bit more about, well, why is it always like that? Is there any research around it? And I did find some really great stuff, especially when it comes to the idea of losing a parent. It's out of the UK. There's a couple different research articles. I'll tag them in the description. But I encourage you to go take a look at it because sometimes I have felt like grief is one of the loneliest journeys we can be on. Partly because if you embrace the idea that there is no right way to grieve, it's that we're all grieving our own unique losses, our own unique experiences in our own unique ways. And therefore, it's exhausting to explain it to someone in some instances, but it also feels like no one truly understands what you're going through, even if you've had the same exact type of loss. So, when I was reflecting on this and I wrote it kind of in the blog post, the study, which was from Quinn and Chambers, talks about growing up with grief and the lived experience of parentally bereaved young people, say that 10 times fast, in the UK. And it is a published kind of peer-reviewed journal article. But the idea is that there is this premise of grief intrusion, where unavoidable dates like birthdays, anniversaries, holidays can cause grief to emerge because you can't ignore that that thing is there. It's a date on the calendar. And so while other things maybe you can avoid, so if you have a song that always makes you think of someone, you don't listen to that song anymore. But you can't, avoid the fact that there is a date that exists. We're not going to sleep through that date, no matter as hard as we may try in some instances. And so for some people, it is almost like this your prep moment. You know it's coming. You know that this like attack from the grief monster is going to be heading for you. And sometimes you can prep yourself and it feels so much worse than it may actually end up being. Or other times you're just like, I'm not going to think about it. I'm not going to think about it. And that's kind of almost like the defensive way, I think. And I don't say defensive as a bad thing. I am the person that like stares down a date on the calendar sometimes, and it makes me more and more anxious. And so what this article was looking at was a way to spin a little bit of this to saying using recurrent dates to reorient to what life is now, redefining what roles are, what relationships are, and creating that new perspective of you can honor what those moments and those unavoidable dates, anniversaries, whatever they may be, were when you were with those people or those situations. But now you can also redefine it. I know I was thinking about the fact that I didn't put a tree up for years after my dad died. I didn't do gifts for years after my dad died. I kind of just avoided. I would show up to the family functions. I'd kind of tap out. I'd be present, but not really. And then I like pivoted and I went all out. I decorated everything. I put up all kind of lights and my whole house looked like Christmas had thrown up in it. And now I'm kind of swung back and we didn't decorate this year, partly because there's so many foster kittens running around this house, but also it just felt exhausting for the idea of doing that. We knew we weren't going to be doing gifts because of the whole I don't have a full-time job thing and wanting to just be fiscally conscious. But it also just felt like a weird year. And it's okay to say this year I'm not going to do the same things. Tradition doesn't have to be reinforced over and over and over again. Tradition for me is more of a mindset than it is actually doing things. So when I have a chance to look back and I look at the fact that it's been about 23 years since my dad died, there's a lot of different seasons of that grief journey, and they don't follow all the different stages. It is a back and forth. It is, like Vicki Harrison said, this ebb and flow of how it feels. I know that when I got married, I had a moment of really missing my dad there, feeling like I had to replace that in some fashion. But in reality, Josh gave me this kind of morning of present, and it was all these photos of me and my dad. And that was what I needed. That was the moment of just saying, well, he's still here. He's with you. He doesn't have to be present in this moment. He doesn't have to walk you down the aisle. He doesn't have to have a father-daughter dance. You had the time with him, and he will always be with you in some way. So finding those different approaches, I never would have thought of something like that. I appreciate Josh every day for doing that. And the idea that you can redefine how you want to have that experience over time. And it is completely okay if one of those things is, I don't want to reorient to what Christmas is without my loved one. I want to feel it. I want to just let it do its organic process. That's fine. There is an amazing book by C.S. Lewis on grief. I really encourage people to read it if you haven't. It does have a religious context to it, but overall, it is just filled with nuggets of wonderful kind of depictive moments of what grief feels like. And the one that really hit me when I was looking through this year on some of the passages of it was his description that grief is like a long valley, a winding valley where any bend may reveal a totally new landscape. And I say that because sometimes you go around that bend and you have a moment where it just feels so beautiful. And you take a step and you think, my gosh, like this doesn't have to have this layer of gloom over it. That there are moments where the sun is going to continue to shine and we're going to continue to honor and appreciate what we've had in our lives. And I think this is especially important when we're grieving things that are not deaths. When we're grieving the loss of relationships or grieving even leaving a job or a future that you thought is what you had ahead of you. Grief is so complex from that standpoint. And hopefully we all will give ourselves a little grace to realize that it doesn't have to just be around the physical loss of someone from this living, breathing earth. It can be a pet. It can be a way of life. It can be the way my body looked a few years ago. All of that can still evoke those moments of grief. And it doesn't mean that it always has to be this dark kind of turn ahead of us. We push through, much like the idea of pushing through our hot messes to get to what that next kind of potential looks like. I think that as we learn to appreciate the journey of grief that we may be on, we also may learn to appreciate what grows and what's been left behind. So I hope that that is a message for folks that are struggling right now, who are having moments of, this year just didn't feel right, or it's your first year where you feel like you're really experiencing some of this, and that you will give yourself the space to exist in that feeling that you have and that version of you that you are at this moment, and know that it's okay to feel messy. It's okay to not be all put together on a regular basis. It is okay to say that you need a moment and to be questioning of maybe decisions you've made or things that you've done, but not feel as if you have to make it all make sense right now. And I think that's my most favorite part of this journey as a whole, whether it's my own mental health and wellness journey, my own grief journey, or my journey with this pod. Because there have been moments where I have looked at Josh and I've looked at friends and I've said, I don't know why I'm doing this. I have had instances where I've messed up a recording or I've missed having someone be present, for the date and time. And then we don't ever reschedule. And I'm like, wow, I'm not cut out for this. And I've had to remind myself, I do this all on my own. I edit everything. I do all of the marketing. I do all of the arts and graphics. I do all of the sound components. Everything is kind of here for me and I love it. But it also means that it's a lot some days. And so to take a moment to step away and say, you know what, I'm not going to have that clip ready to go on Wednesday. It's going to come out on Thursday has been a lesson I've had to give myself. Or to say, I'm just going to do a quick teaser episode and not push to try to get that next guest on ASAP, because I want to have time to make it as high quality as I possibly can. Because you all deserve that. You're the listeners. You're the reason that I come on here and have these kind of honest, open, transparent conversations. So you've probably heard a lot of kind of catchwords as we've been chatting today, and I've gone on a little longer than I even planned to. But what, again, I hope you take out of this is that there is a lot of the goodness from the first 6 months that is continuing as we go into 2026. There are a lot of things I've learned that I'll be improving on as we head into 2026. 2026. I may be asking for more help from people. You may hopefully hear an advertisement here or there, again, just to help support the ability to bring this podcast forward to you on a regular basis. But what it won't lose is the authenticity of what the message here is, which is we keep it real. We are going to be honest about things that sometimes are really hard to talk about, and we're not going to judge. And we are going to have a space where people can be themselves and present themselves in the way that they feel most authentically represents them. And that's what I want. And again, I hope that if you have people that you feel like are meant to share their story in that way, that you will let me know. I also hope that if you think that people in your life need a little bit of this message, that you will share it with them. And if you're not a listener, or there's people that don't like to listen to the pods, or they're like, oh God, an hour is so long, send them my blog post. I think it's another way to just be able to quickly read through something that only will take about 10 minutes at most. And hopefully they'll find little nuggets through that as well. Again, that's the Messy Monday blog post that releases on NC Bulger Solutions. And I will make sure it is tagged in the description of the episode. And with that, I'm just going to stop talking. I'm going to take this time to give back to you all what you need over the holidays and as we head into the new year. And again, cut yourself a break. Know that you are doing as best as you can do in any moment, in any time, and that we're all right there with you. And maybe we don't talk about it as much. Maybe we aren't as open as we could be, but it doesn't mean that your journey doesn't matter. It means that it's yours, and own it and understand that it's all going to make sense at some point. It really will. No matter how much of a hot mess you might feel, your high potential is just around the corner. Talk soon.